Hello and welcome to our presentation. During the next minutes, we're going to walk you through the universe of the sonnet. On this presentation, we're going to be talking about some fundamentals like the origin of the sonnet and also the evolution of the sonnet throughout time. We are going also to share some information about the most important variations or manifestations of the sonnet. And we're going to review some of the most important poets that used to write sonnets or sonneters. Finally, we want to share with you the analysis of two well-known sonnets that we have reviewed and discussed in depth. Hopefully, you're going to enjoy this presentation as much as we enjoyed it preparing it for you. This presentation has been brought to you by Rosa, Daniela, Warren, and Alex. Thank you in advance for watching. The most important question we must answer before we move forward is what is a sonnet? Well, a sonnet is a specific type of poem. It's a poem that normally expresses or transmits a thought. It could be an idea or even a feeling. Sonnets are made up of 14 lines and each line is going to have 10 syllables. Sonnets normally follow a scheme or a structure. The two that are the most important or relevant ones are the Italian and the English. The Italian scheme is going to have an opening and an end. The opening, it's a claim, it could be a question or a statement. And the end, it's the response or the answer to that question or the reply to the initial statement. Openings are normally created out of an octave of 8 lines, and the octave it's created out of 2 quatrains. The end, on the other hand, it's only 6 lines, or a sestet. On the other hand, we have the English approach, or the English scheme or structure. This is created using 3 quatrains of 4 lines each and a couplet of 2 lines. So the organization is quite different, and the ideas and the message that at the end the sonnet transmits could also be different depending on the organization of these ideas. We're going to be studying different characteristics of these two approaches and even additional approaches in some slides ahead.
Thank you, Alex. My name is Warren Villalobos, and I'm going to speak about the origin of the sonnet. The sonnet was original from Italy. That was in the start of the 13th century, and it comes from the word sonetto. It means little son or son in Italian. The sonnet through time. The origin of the sonnet, it was in the 13th century with Francesco Petrarch. He was one of the first masters. The sonnet started to gain some prominence in the next century. And then, in the 16th century, Thomas Wyan introduced the sonnet to England. But it was in the 17th century when William Shakespeare introduced it and popularized the English structure. Today, the sonnet remains as one of the most important poet manifestations. The Petrarchan sonnet, also called Italian sonnet, named after the Italian poet Petrarch. Sir Thomas Wyatt introduced it in England in the early 16th century. Another English exponent was Henry Howard, Earl of Surrey.
A few slides ago, we introduced the two most important or relevant schemes that a sonnet could have. Now I'm going to focus on the Shakespearean sonnet. It's also called or named English sonnet, and it was named after the English poet Shakespeare. However, there's a lot of controversy in terms of its actual origin. It is said that Shakespeare was not the first poet who made use of this structure. However, and definitely, he was the one who made it popular. The most important characteristic of a Shakespearean sonnet is the structure it follows in terms of rhyme. It makes use of the iambic pentameter. It's a specific rhyme scheme in which each line of the sonnet is going to have not only 10 syllables, but the syllables are going to follow a pattern in terms of the stress. We're going to have one unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. And this is going to be the case for each of the syllables in each of the lines of the sonnet. One example that makes it really easy to understand is when I do count the clock that tells the time. We're going to see the organization of the line in which we're going to have when, a syllable that is unstressed, followed by the pronoun I, that it's a syllable, but in this case is stressed. And we're going to have the same sequence all over the line. We're going to have unstressed, do. We're going to have stressed, count. The clock that tells the time. Again, we're going to have the 10 syllables in each of the lines, but syllables are going to be organized in this specific sequence. Unstressed, stressed.
Hello, I will be explaining sonnets and rhyme. As it has been said previously, a sonnet is a 14-line poem in iambic pentameter, but what does this mean? An iambus or iambic foot is a unit that has one unstressed and then one stressed syllable. For example, the words I see. Notice the emphasis in the word see. Now, iambic pentameter refers to a measure of a line of poetry that has 5 iambic feet. As previously mentioned, the basis for all sonnets stem from 2 forms, the Petrarchan or Italian and the Shakespearean or English sonnet. The Petrarchan sonnet is divided in 2 stanzas. The first stanza is 1 octave. It has 8 lines, whose rhyme scheme is AB, BA, AB, BA. This stanza establishes an argument, an observation, or a question. The second stanza is a sextet, composed of 6 lines, and it is actually the answer to the first stanza. Its rhyme scheme is CDE, CDE, or CDC, CDC, as you can see in the example on the box below. The English sonnet or Shakespearean sonnet is divided in 4 stanzas. The first 3 stanzas are quatrains with the rhyme schemes A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F. The fourth stanza is a couplet, and it is important because it provides a conclusion of what is said in the previous stanzas. It can be a reaffirmation or a refutation of them, and it rhymes GG. There are other types of sonnets which basically departed from these 2 basic forms. The first one would be the Spenserian sonnet, invented by Edmund Spenser in the 16th century. It also has 4 stanzas, but it interweaves couplets between quatrains. It actually reorganizes the English sonnet. Then we have the Miltonic sonnet that uses the Italian pattern as a base. Miltonic sonnets express inner concerns, and they take the octave and run into the sextet. The Chortle sonnet is a 19th century invention made by Gerard Manley Hopkins. It is a contracted sonnet. It only has 11 lines. The last line is known as a tail because it is only half a line. It has a proportional relation with the Italian sonnet. The modern sonnet and the American sonnet are other forms that retain the 14-line structure of the original sonnets. About the American, it is said that it's very musical. It is the African American response to the traditional sonnet, and some of its exponents are Gerald Stern, Wanda Coleman, Ted Berrigan, and Karen Volkman.
George Gascoigne. English poet George Gascoigne was born around 1535 in Bedfordshire. He part of the Elizabethan court for a while, though largely unsuccessful, and was a soldier who fought in the Low Countries of Belgium and France. He was a poet of some repute, and his works helped in the deification of the Queen, which saw her transformation to the Virgin Queen, who was married to her people. Gascoigne initially contented himself with translating works such as Supposes and Jocasta before writing his two most memorable works, Hundred Sundry Flowers in 1573 and Poesies of Gascoigne a couple of years later. Sir Philip Sidney, after Elizabeth I succeeded to the throne, his father was appointed Lord President of Wales. Sir Henry Sidney, in keeping with his family background, the young Sidney was intended for a career as a statesman and soldier. During the summer of 1582, he composed a sonnet sequence, Astrophel and Stella, that recounts a counter's passion in delicate fictionalized terms, its first stirrings, his struggles against it, and his final abandonment. He wrote The Defense of Poesy, an urban and eloquent plea for the social value of imaginative fiction, which remains the finest work of Elizabethan literary criticism. After Shakespeare's sonnets, Sidney's Astrophel and Stella is considered the finest Elizabethan sonnet cycle. Edmund Spenser. Little is certainly known about Spenser. He was related to a noble Midlands family of Spenser, whose fortunes had been made through ship racing. His own immediate family was not wealthy. Spenser's period at the University of Cambridge was undoubtedly important for the acquisition of his wide knowledge, not only of the Latin and some of the Greek classics, but also of the Italian, French, and English literature of his own and earlier times. His knowledge of the traditional forms and themes of lyrical and narrative poetry provided foundations for him to build his own highly original compositions. English poet whose long allegorical poem The Fairy Queen is one of the greatest in the English language. It was written in what came to be called the Spenserian stanza. William Shakespeare was an English playwright and poet who is widely considered to be the greatest dramatist of all time. With the exception of the tragic love story Romeo and Juliet, William Shakespeare's birthplace were mostly histories. Shakespeare also wrote several comedies during his early period, The Romantic Merchant of Venice and As You Like It. It was in William Shakespeare's later period, after 1600, that he wrote the tragedies Hamlet, Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth. In these, Shakespeare's characters present vivid impressions of human temperament that are timeless and universal. Sonnet 116. The opening line echoes marriage, both the marriage of true minds must be a metaphor for true love. It is meant to seem ideal. The use of the noun minds heightens the fact that this union is between thoughtful and reflective people rather than those chasing their changeable passions. In the second line of this poem emphasizes the power we are meant to find from within, the opening line's sentiment. In line 3 is profound. It emphasizes the fickleness of love, that changes when it finds faults. This is further affirmed with the near repetition of removed and remover, which has a similar meaning. Love does not change even if someone was worth the reception or is gone. The imagery in line 6 of Tempest that do not shake the foundation of this love amplifies the idea that the heart of this relationship as constant by affection. By line 7, it is clear that the ever fixed mark is not just star but also the North Star. It is clear this is the case as this star never changes position in the sky. This is linked back to navigation knowledge that sailors would have used at the time Shakespeare was writing. To find out where they were, the North Star was a way of beginning to track where you are, maybe, or to get home. Additionally, there's mysterious ideas about astrology are emphasized for the phrase whose worth is unknown. The time Shakespeare was writing stars were mysterious and no one knew the scientific facts tying them. Line 9 reminds a turning point in this poem, love. A lot of times, full the capitalization of the noun time is significant as it strengthens the idea that time is demanding to take use as illustrated by the rosy cheeks and eventual life. The fact love is not a full categorically makes enough deficient against the constraints the time made. However, the bending cycle in line 10 is a stereotypical and somewhat cliched imaging associated with the Grim Reaper. By the end, this third quatrain is crystal clear. Love does not change, it will not alter, it will not relent.
The second sonnet that we're going to be analyzing is Remember by Christina Rossetti. We are going to first of all listen to the poem and then we're going to move forward with a few elements that we want to mention and analyze.
Remember me when I am gone away, gone far away into the silent land. When you can no more hold me by the hand, nor I half turn to go, yet turning stay. Remember me when no more day by day you tell me of our future that you planned. Only remember me. You understand it will be late to counsel then, or pray. Yet if you should forget me for a while, and afterwards remember, do not grieve. For if the darkness and corruption leave a vestige of the thoughts that once I had, better by far you should forget and smile, than that you should remember and be sad.
Needless to say that Remember it's one of my favorite sonnets. And Christina Rossetti, through these sonnet, managed to include a lot of emotions or feelings in only 14 lines. And that's the first element that I want to analyze. This sonnet, by definition, has only 14 lines, and each line has 10 syllables. One important characteristics of the sonnets that we have been discussing throughout this presentation is the iambic pentameter. And I have highlighted in the first line a few syllables to represent this specific pattern. We're going to have remember me when I am gone away. We're going to see how these pairs of syllables are always an stressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. And that's pretty much the pattern that each of the lines will follow. At the same time, it's important to highlight that this sonnet follows the following scheme or structure in terms of rhyme. We're going to have A, B, B, A, B, B, A, C, D, D, E-C-E. And we're going to see that with the words that we have highlighted in color. We're going to see away, stay, land, hand. We have day, pray, planned, understand. And at the end, we have while, rhyming with smile. We have grieve and leave. And finally, had and sad. One final element that it's important to review in terms of this sonnet, it's the subject and the theme. It seems to be that the speaker is given some instructions, guidance to his or her beloved. We see that in the first 8 lines, the speaker asks to be remembered. But at the same time, we have that feeling that the speaker seems to be obsessed with death. Finally, we're gonna see a few lines at the very end that brings a twist in the sense that the speaker doesn't have that request to be remembered forever, but it seems to have changed his or her mind, and now he recommends to smile instead of being sad. He recommends coping with the situation, overcoming the situation, and continue to be happy. Well, that's all we had prepared for you. Thank you very much for watching.